Okay, so this was a custom application that we made for our commodity supplemental food program. This is a little bit of information about it, but basically they go to different locations around our 10-county area. They show up with a truck, and then people show up and pick up their different boxes of food. They wanted to have a system in Salesforce that would help them better track some of the different aspects that they're having some trouble with. And we'll go through the data we're able to pull pretty soon. So yeah, basically the way that I set it up was, and this is a look at the schema build, and we'll try not to get too in the weeds here. But each contact is part of a household. We do use the NPSP household model. And going from the contact, they have a relationship with a food site, so they show up to the same place pretty much every week. So there wasn't any need for like some crazy junction here. They just have like a default place they're going to go to, and that's where they always show up. Each time they showed up, that goes into an object called the drop-off occurrence. So basically that's for every single time they show up to one of these. That's like where they go, and then there's a food enrollment, which connects the drop-off occurrence and the contact, as well as the account. So we can see on two levels where how many households we have at an individual site, as well as how many contacts, and that is important. We can also see there is a connection to a campaign here. So each of these, we communicate with an external system to do robotic call reminders. So we use campaigns because that's the only thing it can pull from. But this is a way for us to communicate with each group coming, because this campaign connects to the drop-off occurrence. So each drop-off occurrence has a campaign. We're able to connect with those people and be able to say ahead of time if there's a snow, or if it snows and something gets canceled, etc. So yeah, we'll start off with the food site. So there's a default length here. We wanted to be able to get these on like a calendar. So you can see with this, right, we have the particular drop-off occurrences on a calendar. This way you only have to set up the start time and not the end time. So that's what that does for us. Then, what county it's in, we wanted to know. Site name, whether it's a pickup or drop-off. And then the other big thing is they wanted to be able to mark attendance with barcodes. So we do like a library card type system. I'll talk through how that works in a little bit, but basically you go through, and every time a contact shows up, they can either use this card we give them, or they can use a driver's license or any other type of card that produces a barcode that we basically put into an external ID field. So this is, there's a custom Apex controller on this. Well, it uses the standard controller for the food site plus an extension to grab any contacts at that food site. Some pieces I wrote, and then other pieces I had to kind of cobble off the internet. I'm not necessarily a proficient coder, but I know enough Apex to do these kind of things, and enough visual force to construct these. This is just an image formula field that basically I was able to put together to be able to produce these images, and then the actual visual force page itself. And then it's a repeat value for everything in that list that we created. And that's how you get all the different cards. So, moving on, every time we show up, like I mentioned, we have these drop-off occurrences. So what happens is and this error has been showing up. I don't think it's anything we did. It doesn't cause any problems. It's just something that happens only in the sandbox. It hasn't been happening in production. But there's one automation we built where you check this box, and it creates a campaign for the occurrence as well, so that way you're not having to go, and we don't have to train our users on how to create campaigns and all that good stuff. And then there's this checkbox to activate it. So what this does is it launches a flow that looks through all the contacts at this food site and creates food enrollments at this occurrence for them. So that was a little bit complex to set up. Yeah, and then basically as they show up, each one of them shows up with their card, or if once we collect their driver's license number, we can put it in the back here, and then we pretty much, if you want to look at this, I'm about to scan. Well, the one thing that happens is when we create these, when they're in scheduled status, you can see like they have one naming convention, right? And then when they go to attended, they have a different naming convention, so you can kind of see which ones happened where. So this is Audrey was marked as attended. So we'll go ahead and just do one of these really quick. And it looks like we've got, try and find a name that starts with an A that I printed off. Here's an Andrew test. So it's pretty straightforward. You just punch their name, press next. It shows you that it found Andrew test, and you press finish. If there's multiple people in a household, it'll actually show both of them. Our users wanted the ability to be able to mark the whole household as attended, because usually a husband's going to pick up for a wife. It's not like two people that live together are both going. And you can see after I did that, the guy's name is Andrew Test. Andrew Test is now marked as attended. So basically all the people show up over about that 2-hour period, and we're able to scan them in this way. And then this is the one you would use if they use a driver's license or something like that. Once you're finished, there should still be a bunch of people maybe who didn't show up. You just go ahead and mark all scheduled as no-show, and this is a global pick list from another object. But you can mark all of these as no-shows, for example. It'll go ahead, loop through everyone there, and mark them all as no-showed. So that's pretty much how the whole app actually looks on the surface. I tried to keep it as simple as I could for users. Really all they need to do, add their contacts, make sure they're assigned to the right site, create the drop-off occurrences, activate it, and then run this whole thing over here. And then once they're done, mark all scheduled as attended. And these do show up dynamically, so if you find an inactive occurrence, you won't be able to see the barcode enrollments. So that's how we make sure that we're activating things before we leave the office, or no one's trying to scan in barcodes to an inactive occurrence, because then there wouldn't be any food enrollments created. Yeah, as far as data we can collect, this is in production. I didn't want to show anything that would compromise anyone in the program's information. But these are basically all the different sites we go to, and this tells us how many contacts are in each one. And this tells us how many households as well. So different funders might want to know different information on these two numbers. So being able to separate them out was important. We're able to also see, so each site has like a subscription or amount of people that are supposed to be enrolled there. And there's quite a bit of variance. And we're able to tell what % filled. So we're actually overfilling almost all of our sites, as you can tell. So once we get actual data of people showing up and not showing up, we'll be able to figure out who is and who isn't actively engaged in the program. This is a dashboard that looks at our customer's age. It's a little bit morbid, but it does kind of tell us if certain sites may be doing a poor job recruiting people. The age limit's 60 plus. So we want to make sure we're grabbing that. This is another version of that total slots available. And then we also have similar data to this on the actual occurrences themselves. So we looked at this one at East Bay Township. As you can see, it's inactive. If you go to the food site itself, you can see how many contacts and how many, what the % filled is by slot. Eventually we'll be able to add to the drop-off occurrences, show rates and things like that as reports kind of embedded on the side here. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.